23 people watched my career die that night. At least, that's what they thought they were witnessing. The sound still echoes in my mind. That cruel cutting laughter that filled the private dining room at the Meridian, Denver's most exclusive restaurant. Every chuckle, every smirk, every pitying glance burned into my memory as our creative director, Rebecca Thornton, stood there with her manicured hand on my wrist, calling me exactly what she thought I was, a loser. "This guy thinks typing up other people's genius makes him creative," she announced to the entire table, her voice dripping with false sweetness. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. My colleagues, people I'd worked alongside for 3 years, were either laughing or looking away in secondhand embarrassment. But here's what Rebecca didn't know. What none of them knew. For the past 6 months, I'd been quietly documenting every single project she'd stolen from me, every campaign she'd claimed as her own brilliant creation. Every late night I'd spent crafting presentations that would later have her name plastered across them. Have you ever been in a room where someone publicly destroys you, and everyone just watches? Where your hard work becomes someone else's stepping stone, and you're supposed to just accept it because that's how the corporate world works? If you've ever felt invisible while watching someone else claim your victories, hit that like button right now. Because what I did next didn't just change my life. It destroyed hers completely. My name is Daniel Morrison, and this is the story of how 3 years of stolen work, 12 hijacked campaigns, and 1 humiliating dinner turned into the sweetest revenge the marketing world had ever seen. But before I tell you exactly how I turned the tables, I need to ask you something important. Have you ever poured your heart into something, a project, an idea, a creation, only to watch someone else slap their name on it and take all the credit? Maybe it was that coworker who presented your solution as their breakthrough, that boss who suddenly remembered your idea during the big meeting, or that friend who retold your story at parties like it happened to them. The anger that builds inside you, that frustration of screaming the truth while no one listens, that's exactly where I was for 3 long years at Hartley & Associates marketing firm. But here's the question that changed everything for me. How long do you stay silent? How many stolen victories do you endure before you realize that playing nice only makes you an easier target? Would you have done what I did? Would you have gathered evidence for months, planning the perfect moment to expose the truth? Or would you have kept your head down, accepted the humiliation, and hoped things would somehow get better? Comment below right now. Are you a fighter who would have fought back, or a waiter who would have bided your time? Because what I'm about to share will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about workplace revenge. And if you want more stories about people who refuse to be victims of corporate theft, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Let me take you back to where this all started, 3 years before that fateful dinner. I was 26 when I joined Hartley & Associates as a junior copywriter. Fresh out of college with $47,000 in student loans and a mother back in Ohio, whose medical bills were eating through her retirement savings faster than I could send money home. Cancer doesn't care about your financial situation, and neither do bill collectors. The position at Hartley wasn't glamorous. Junior copywriters were basically the invisible workforce. We created the concepts, wrote the campaigns, and stayed late perfecting every word, while senior staff took client calls and collected bonuses. But I was good at it, really good. My first campaign increased client engagement by 340%. My second won an industry award, though you'd never know my name was anywhere near it. That's when Rebecca Thornton entered the picture, Harvard MBA, design a wardrobe that probably cost more than my annual rent, a smile that could charm board members, and a handshake that could close million-dollar deals. She joined as creative director 2 years into my tenure, and from day one, something felt off about how she operated. The first time she stole from me, I thought it was a misunderstanding. I'd spent 2 weeks developing a campaign for Watson Industries, every tagline, every visual concept, every emotional beat carefully crafted. I submitted it through the proper channels, through her office, as required. The next Monday, I watched her present my exact work to the board, word for word, gesture for gesture, as if she'd birthed it herself. "Brilliant work, Rebecca," Mr. Hartley had said, while I sat in the corner taking notes like a good assistant. I confronted her privately afterward. She looked at me with those cold blue eyes and said, "Daniel, we're a team here. Your contributions help shape the overall vision, but let's not get confused about who's directing that vision. You're learning from the best. Be grateful." But here's what Rebecca didn't know. I started documenting everything that day. Every email, every draft, every timestamp, every security camera footage of me working until 2 a.m. on projects that would mysteriously become Rebecca's innovations by morning. I created backup files on 3 separate drives. I recorded my screen while working. I even started sending myself certified mail with USB drives containing my original work, old school, but legally bulletproof. Over the next 2 years, she took 12 of my campaigns. 12. The City First Bank rebrand that increased their market share by 18%? Mine. The Patterson Electronics holiday campaign that went viral with 3.2 million shares? Mine. Every single one, presented to clients with her signature confidence while I sat silent, watching my creativity become her career rocket fuel. Why didn't I speak up sooner? Remember that sick mother I mentioned? Her treatment was $6,000 a month. My student loans were $890. Rent was $1,400. I needed this job like I needed oxygen. And Rebecca knew it. She'd actually said to me once, "It must be hard, supporting your mother through her illness. Thank goodness you have stable employment here." It wasn't a comment. It was a threat wrapped in false sympathy. But the Meridian Hotels campaign, that was different. That was my masterpiece. I'd spent 4 months on it, working nights and weekends, crafting a narrative that didn't just sell hotel rooms but sold experiences, memories, transformations. It was sophisticated yet accessible, luxurious yet warm. Every focus group cried during the test screenings. The client signed a $50 million contract on the spot. And Rebecca stood there, accepting champagne toasts and bonus announcements, while I watched from my corner desk, my notebook full of the original concepts locked in my drawer. The Meridian campaign was the final straw, but it was also my opportunity, because this time I knew she'd gotten cocky, this time she'd left a trail, and this time I had a plan. See, while Rebecca was busy stealing my present, I'd been carefully building her future, a future where every single theft would be exposed, where every lie would be illuminated, where her entire house of cards would come crashing down in front of the very people she'd been deceiving. I started reaching out to recruiters quietly. Brennan Creative, our biggest competitor, had been watching the Meridian campaign with interest. When I showed them my portfolio, my real portfolio, with proof of creation, they didn't just offer me a job. They offered me Rebecca's exact position, creative director, with a 150% salary increase and complete creative freedom. The dinner invitation came 2 weeks after I'd accepted Brennan's offer. A celebration at the Meridian restaurant, how poetic. Rebecca probably thought she was at the peak of her power, surrounded by admirers, about to cement her position as the firm's golden child. She had no idea she was actually walking into her own professional funeral, and I was about to deliver the eulogy. The Meridian restaurant occupied the entire 45th floor of the Apex Tower, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Denver that made you feel like you owned the city. The private dining room they'd reserved for us was all dark mahogany and soft golden lighting, the kind of place where deals worth millions were sealed over aged whiskey and pristine white tablecloths. I arrived 15 minutes early, something I never did. But tonight was different. Tonight, I needed to choose my seat carefully, far enough from the power center to seem appropriately subordinate, but with a clear view of everyone's face. I wanted to see their expressions when everything changed. The envelope in my jacket pocket felt heavier than it should have, containing just a single sheet of paper. My resignation letter, typed and signed, dated for today. My phone showed 7:13 p.m. In exactly 47 minutes, at 8 p.m. sharp, the emails I'd scheduled would hit every inbox at this table, but they didn't know that yet. People filed in gradually, the hierarchy of our firm playing out in who sat where. Bradley Hartley took the head of the table, naturally. Senior partners flanked him. Rebecca positioned herself at his right hand, the power position, the place of honor. She wore a black designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, her diamond earrings catching the light every time she threw her head back to laugh at someone's joke. I watched her work the room, touching shoulders, making inside jokes, reinforcing her position as the firm's rising star. She was good at this game, better than good. She was a master. But masters sometimes forget that even pawns can become queens if they reach the other side of the board. Daniel, her voice cut through the murmur of conversation. Don't just stand there, we need wine. The request was deliberate. There were servers for that, circulating constantly with bottles worth hundreds of dollars. But Rebecca wanted to establish the pecking order early, wanted everyone to see me serving her. I stood without hesitation, which seemed to surprise her. Usually, I'd show some resistance, some flash of pride she could then crush. But tonight, I moved with an odd calm that I could see made her slightly uncomfortable. The wine was Chateau Margaux 2010, a bottle that cost more than my first car. As I approached her with it, she placed her manicured hand on my wrist, not gently, but possessively, like you'd hold a tool you owned. Everyone needs to hear this, she announced, her grip tightening. The room's attention shifted to us. Conversations died mid-sentence. 23 pairs of eyes turned our way. I could feel my phone vibrating in my pocket, probably the automated reminder that my scheduled emails would send in 38 minutes. Rachel from HR was watching with concern. She'd always been kind to me, probably suspected something was off about Rebecca's meteoric rise. Tom from accounting looked uncomfortable already, pushing food around his plate, but most were leaning in with anticipation, ready for whatever entertainment Rebecca was about to provide at my expense. She held my wrist for 3 more seconds, savoring the moment, building the anticipation. Her perfume, something French and expensive, mixed with the aroma of the wine I was holding. Everything about her screamed success, power, control. You all know Daniel helps me with my presentations, right? She began, her tone suggesting she was about to share something delightful. I stood perfectly still, the wine bottle steady in my hand. 36 minutes until the email sent. 36 minutes until 12 plagiarized campaigns were exposed. 36 minutes until financial records showed her selling company secrets to competitors. 36 minutes until her world shattered like the wine glass she was about to raise in a mock toast to her own brilliance. My calmness must have bothered her because she squeezed my wrist harder, trying to get a reaction, but I'd spent 3 years learning to hide my emotions from her. Tonight, that skill would serve me perfectly. Last week, she continued, I caught him doing the most pathetic thing. As she launched into her story, her voice carrying across the room with practiced projection, I noticed something she didn't. Mr. Hartley's phone lighting up on the table. A notification, then another, 34 minutes early. The emails had sent themselves 34 minutes early. The timer had been wrong. The show was about to begin ahead of schedule. So last week, Rebecca continued, her voice carrying that special tone reserved for destroying someone's dignity, I stayed late to grab some files from the conference room, and there was Daniel, all alone, standing at the head of the table. She paused, making sure every single person was listening. The servers had even stopped refilling glasses, sensing the tension in the room. He was presenting, to an empty room, to chairs. Her laugh tinkled like broken glass. But not just any presentation, my Meridian presentation, the exact one I delivered to win us that $50 million contract. A few uncomfortable chuckles started around the table. I saw Jessica from design bite her lip, looking away. She knew, she had to know she'd seen me working on those designs months before Rebecca ever touched them. Word for word, Rebecca continued, releasing my wrist to gesture dramatically. He even tried to copy my hand movements. This little... She paused, pretending to search for the right word while her eyes gleamed with malice. Assistant of mine, practicing in the mirror like a child wearing mommy's high heels. The laughter grew louder. Not everyone. I counted maybe 12 people genuinely laughing, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But 12 was enough. 12 was more than enough to make my face burn and my hands start to shake. The best part, Rebecca stood now, commanding the room completely, is that he actually thinks he could do what I do. This guy who can barely form a coherent sentence in client meetings, who spent 3 years typing up other people's brilliance, actually believes he's creative. Mr. Hartley cleared his throat. Rebecca, perhaps. Oh, Bradley, I'm not being mean, she cut him off, something only she could get away with. It's actually sweet in a pathetic sort of way, like a dog walking on its hind legs trying to be human. That got a bigger laugh. Even Mr. Hartley's mouth twitched. Daniel probably goes home to his sad little studio apartment. You know, the one in that building with the broken elevator. And dreams about mattering, about being important, about being something more than what he is. She turned to face me directly, her eyes cold and triumphant. But here's the truth, Daniel. Some people are meant to be stars. They're born with that special something, talent, vision, the ability to inspire others. And then there are people like you, the supporters, the helpers, the ones who orbit around the real talent, basking in reflected light because they can't generate any of their own. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. More notifications. The emails were definitely sending early, but no one had checked their phones yet. They were too enthralled by Rebecca's performance. You're not a creator, Daniel. You're a typist. You're not a visionary. You're a note-taker. And you're certainly not leadership material. You're exactly what you've always been and what you'll always be. A nobody. A loser who mistakes proximity to success for actual achievement. The word loser hit the room like a physical force. Even the people who'd been laughing stopped. That was too far, too harsh, too cruel even for corporate standards. Rachel from HR spoke up. Rebecca, that's... What? Honest? Rebecca spun toward her. We're doing Daniel a favor by being honest. Better he understands his place now than waste years chasing dreams he'll never catch. She walked back to her seat, picking up her wineglass with a flourish. Let's toast to knowing our place in the world. To Daniel, for being the best little helper a creative director could ask for. Even if he does play dress-up sometimes. About half the room raised their glasses reluctantly. The other half kept them on the table. I saw Tom from accounting actually push his away. Mr. Hartley's phone lit up again. Then another. Then 3 more in rapid succession. His eyebrows furrowed as he glanced down. Daniel, Rebecca called out, her voice sing-song and mocking. Aren't you going to say something, defend yourself? Or are you just going to stand there like you always do, silent and accepting, like the good little loser you are? The room held its breath. This was it. The moment everyone expected me to either break down or storm out. The moment Rebecca would win completely, establishing her dominance while destroying any credibility I might have had. If you're feeling that anger right now, that burning injustice of watching someone tear another person down for sport, comment below with the word justice, because what happens next will satisfy every part of you that's ever been wronged. Because I didn't storm out. I didn't break down. Instead, I set down the wine bottle with steady hands and spoke in a voice I didn't even recognize as my own. Calm, clear, and absolutely certain. You're right, Rebecca. I was practicing your presentation. Her smile widened, victory flooding her features. But not for the reason you think. The smile faltered slightly. Around us, phones were starting to buzz and light up like a symphony of notifications. Mr. Hartley picked his up, his face immediately changing as he read what was on the screen. The humiliation Rebecca had just unleashed was about to come back to her tenfold, and she didn't even know it yet. You're right, Rebecca. I was practicing your presentation. My voice cut through the noise of buzzing phones like a blade through silk. Steady, controlled, nothing like the stammering junior copywriter they all expected. Rebecca's victory smile grew wider. See? At least he admits. But not because I wanted to be you, I continued, taking a step forward. I was trying to understand how someone could stand in front of a room full of intelligent people and lie with such conviction. How someone could take another person's months of work, their creativity, their passion, and claim it as their own, without even a flicker of guilt. The room went dead silent. Even the phone stopped buzzing for a moment. Rebecca's laugh came out forced. Daniel, you're embarrassing yourself. I know rejection is hard. The Meridian presentation was mine. Those 5 words landed like grenades. Rebecca's face went through a series of micro-expressions: confusion, anger, then carefully manufactured amusement. That's absolutely ridiculous, she said, but her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. Everyone here knows I developed that campaign. I presented it to the board myself. Bradley, tell him. Every word was mine, I continued, my voice growing stronger. Every concept, every tagline, the emotional arc that made the clients cry during the test screening, that came from my notebook. The one I keep locked in my desk drawer because I learned early that leaving my work out in the open meant watching, walk into your office and come out with your name on it. You're having some kind of breakdown, Rebecca said, standing up abruptly. Bradley, I think Daniel needs... 3 months before you ever created the Meridian campaign, I interrupted, I submitted the original concept through the proper channels. Through your office, actually. I have the email receipts, time-stamped. I have the original files with my metadata embedded. I have security footage of me working on it until 3 a.m. while you were at wine tastings and networking events. Mr. Hartley looked up from his phone, his face an interesting shade of purple. Daniel, these are serious accusations. They're not accusations if they're facts, I replied. Check your email, Mr. Hartley. All of you, actually. I sent comprehensive documentation about an hour ago, though it seems to have arrived early. The sound of 23 people simultaneously reaching for their phones filled the room. Rebecca's face had gone from amused to concerned. Whatever he sent you is fabricated, she said quickly. He's obviously been planning this jealous little stunt. 12 campaigns, I said, looking directly at her. Over 2 years you've claimed 12 of my campaigns as your own. Watson Industries, City First Bank, Patterson Electronics. Should I continue? This is insane, Rebecca's voice pitched higher. You're a junior copywriter. You assist me. That's your job. My job was to create. Your job was to steal. And you were excellent at it. I pulled out my phone, showing the screen to the room. Every single project documented. Drafts with timestamps predating your involvement by weeks, sometimes months. Email chains showing my original submissions. Even audio recordings of you specifically instructing me not to mention my contributions to anyone. Rebecca's perfectly composed facade was cracking. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the table edge. You recorded me without my consent? One-party consent state, Tom from accounting said quietly, still scrolling through his phone. Colorado allows it. This is nothing but the desperate attempt of a failed employee trying to damage my reputation, Rebecca said, but her voice wavered. I've led this firm to unprecedented success. With other people's work, I said. But here's the interesting part, Rebecca. You're actually talented. You could have succeeded on your own merit. You chose not to. You chose to be a thief. Mr. Hartley stood up slowly, his phone in his hand. Rebecca, this email contains financial records showing transactions between you and Drake and partners. The color drained from Rebecca's face completely. That's not what it looks like. It looks like you've been selling our rejected campaign concepts to our competitors, Mr. Hartley said, his voice dangerously quiet. Including the pinnacle food strategies that mysteriously showed up in Drake's latest campaign. The room erupted. People were scrolling frantically through their phones, gasps and muttered curses filling the air. Rebecca looked around wildly, searching for allies, but found only shocked and angry faces. Daniel's obviously planted this evidence, she said desperately. He's trying to frame me because he can't accept his position. The forensic data trails don't lie, Jessica from design spoke up, her voice shaking with anger. These files, Rebecca, I knew that City First Bank design looked familiar. I helped Daniel with the color palettes, 3 weeks before you supposedly created it. The room's energy had completely shifted. The woman who'd been holding court 5 minutes ago, destroying my reputation for entertainment, was now surrounded by 23 people realizing they'd been deceived. But I wasn't done, not even close. Let me walk everyone through exactly what's in those emails, I said, pulling out a small tablet from my jacket. Since we're all here together, we might as well review the evidence as a team. Rebecca lunged forward. You can't do this. Sit down, Rebecca. Mr. Hartley's voice was ice. I want to hear this. I swiped to the first document. Exhibit A, the Watson Industries campaign. Rebecca claimed creation date of March 15th. My original files show February 2nd. But here's the interesting part. I turned the tablet toward the room. The metadata shows Rebecca's version was literally copied and pasted from my files. She didn't even bother changing the author tags embedded in the code. Jessica gasped. I can verify that. Those are the exact hex color codes I helped Daniel choose in January. Exhibit B, I continued, swiping again. Security footage from February 28th, 3:47 a.m. That's me at my desk, creating the City First Bank rebrand. Rebecca, where were you that night? This is harassment. You were at the Carmichael fundraiser, Rachel from HR said quietly, looking at her phone. I processed your expense report for it. $500 for cocktails and networking. I nodded. Yet somehow you managed to create a complete rebrand strategy while drinking champagne across town. Impressive. The room was completely silent now except for the sound of scrolling fingers and sharp intakes of breath as people discovered more evidence. Exhibit C through L, I said, my voice gaining momentum. 12 campaigns total. Patterson Electronics, mine. Brennan Foods, mine. The Morrison Heights development, ironically enough, also mine. Combined value to the firm approximately $30 million in secured contracts. Even if that were true, Rebecca said desperately, I refined them. I presented them. I sold them to clients. You read from scripts I wrote. You delivered presentations I created. You were essentially a very well-dressed teleprompter with a Harvard MBA. Someone actually laughed, a short, shocked burst that was quickly stifled. But here's where it gets really interesting, I said, swiping to a new section. The corporate espionage. Rebecca's face went from pale to gray. I don't know what you're talking about. Drake and Partners paid you $75,000 for our rejected Pinnacle Foods concepts. The ones that were supposedly locked in your private files that only you had access to. Mr. Hartley's hand clenched around his phone so hard I thought it might shatter. What? February 18th, wire transfer from Drake subsidiary holdings to an account in Rebecca's name. March 3rd, another $50,000 for the Westfield Mall strategies we didn't use. April 20th, $100,000 for our complete competitor analysis on Richmond Securities. Those are fabricated. They're from your own bank records, I said calmly. The ones you accidentally included in your expense reports when you mixed up the PDF attachments. Page 47 through 52 of your April submission. Accounting can verify. Tom from accounting was already pulling up files on his laptop. Holy, it's here. It's all here. Rebecca, you submitted your personal bank statements instead of your corporate card statements. But wait, I said, holding up my hand. There's more. Rebecca slumped in her chair, her perfect posture finally breaking. The NDAs, I continued. Rebecca signed non-disclosure agreements with 3 competing firms, not just Drake, also Mitchell & Associates and Vertex Marketing. She's been running a side consulting business using our resources, our contacts, and our intellectual property. I need legal on the phone immediately, Mr. Hartley said to his assistant, who was already dialing. The best part? I said, looking directly at Rebecca. You billed those consultations to our clients as extended strategy sessions. We're triple dipping, getting paid by us, by our competitors, and charging our own clients for the time you spent betraying them. You vindictive little. Rebecca started. I'm not done, I interrupted. Page 89 of the documentation includes email exchanges between you and Drake's CEO specifically discussing how to undercut our bid for the Meridian Hotels account. The only reason we won was because I submitted a revised proposal directly to Mr. Hartley the night before the pitch. Remember that, Mr. Hartley? You asked who had updated the numbers? Mr. Hartley nodded slowly. You said it was a team effort, Rebecca. It was Daniel working until 5 a.m. to fix what Rebecca had deliberately sabotaged, Jessica said, her voice angry now. I saw him that morning. He hadn't even gone home. The evidence kept mounting as people found more in their emails. 47 instances of plagiarism, 23 examples of timesheet fraud, 16 cases of client information being sold to competitors. The numbers were staggering. "How long have you been collecting this?" Rebecca asked, her voice barely a whisper. 6 months of active documentation, I replied. But the evidence goes back 2 years. Every stolen idea, every claimed credit, every lie you told in meetings while I sat in the corner taking notes like a good little assistant. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Mr. Hartley asked, though his anger was clearly directed at Rebecca, not me. "Would you have believed the junior copywriter over your star creative director?" I asked simply. I needed irrefutable proof. I needed her to get comfortable enough to make bigger mistakes, and I needed to protect myself and my future. "Your future?" Rebecca laughed bitterly. "You just destroyed your career. No firm will hire someone who betrays their superior." "Brennan Creative already has," I said, pulling out the envelope from my pocket. "As their new creative director. Starting Monday." They were very impressed with my portfolio, my real portfolio, with my actual work in it. Gasps echoed around the room. "This is my resignation letter, Mr. Hartley, effective immediately." "Daniel, wait," Mr. Hartley started. But Daniel wasn't done yet. The biggest revelation was still coming, and Rebecca had no idea what was about to hit her. "Oh, I almost forgot," I said, turning back to Rebecca. "Remember last month when you had me handle your email while you were at the spa? You forgot to log out of your personal account. I found something very interesting in your drafts folder." Rebecca's grey face somehow went even paler. "What did you find?" Mr. Hartley demanded. "A business proposal," I said quietly, "for starting her own agency, using Hartley's complete client list, strategic plans for the next 5 years, and offers to 7 of our senior staff to jump ship with her." The launch date was set for next month. The room exploded. People were shouting, phones were ringing, Mr. Hartley was barking orders to legal. In the chaos, Rebecca stood up, grabbed her purse, and tried to walk toward the door. "Security is already in the lobby," Rachel from HR said calmly. "They've been instructed to escort you out after you meet with Mr. Hartley and legal." Rebecca turned back to look at me, her perfect facade completely shattered. "You've ruined everything." "No," I replied. "You ruined everything the moment you decided to build your success on stolen foundations. I just made sure everyone could see the cracks." Mr. Hartley stood up so fast his chair crashed backward against the wall. His face had gone from purple to a shade of red I didn't know was humanly possible. "Rebecca, my office. Now, Bradley, you can't possibly believe." "Now!" His voice boomed across the room with such force that even the servers outside probably heard it. Rebecca stood there, frozen, her designer dress suddenly looking like costume armor that had failed to protect her. "This is a setup. Daniel's clearly been planning to expose a thief and a traitor." Mr. Hartley's voice was deadly quiet now, which was somehow worse than the shouting. "Legal is already on line 1. The FBI's corporate fraud division is on line 2. You have exactly 30 seconds to decide if you want to have this conversation with me first or with federal agents." Rebecca's hands shook as she reached for her purse. "I need my lawyer." "You need a miracle," Tom from accounting said, still scrolling through financial records on his laptop. "This is embezzlement, corporate espionage, fraud. Rebecca, this is prison-level crime. I'll destroy all of you," Rebecca hissed, her composure finally cracking completely. "I know things about this firm, about all of you." "No, you don't," I said calmly. "You know what people let you see, what they performed for you. But you never actually knew anyone here because you were too busy seeing them as stepping stones." She spun toward me, her eyes wild. "This isn't over, Daniel. I'll sue you for defamation, for harassment, for—" "Truth is an absolute defense against defamation," Rachel from HR said quietly. "And Daniel documented everything. Every single thing." "Speaking of documentation," I said, pulling out my envelope, "Mr. Hartley, this is my resignation. Effective immediately." The room went silent again. "Daniel, no." Mr. Hartley's tone suddenly shifted to desperate. "If what you've shown us is true, and I believe it is, then you deserve—" We need to discuss your future here. Senior Creative Director, obviously. Partnership track. Whatever it takes. To keep me quiet? I asked. To maintain the status quo? To pretend that this firm didn't allow a predator to feast on its junior staff for 2 years? That's not... Mr. Hartley started. How many others? I asked, looking around the room. How many other junior employees had their work stolen but didn't have the resources or knowledge to document it? How many brilliant minds left this firm thinking they weren't good enough because someone above them took credit for their creativity? Silence. Brennan Creative offered me creative director, I announced, but more importantly, they offered me the chance to build a team where credit goes where it's due, where junior staff are mentored, not mined for ideas, where creativity is celebrated, not stolen. Daniel, Rebecca said, her voice breaking, please, we can work something out. We already did, I replied. You took my work, and now everyone knows it. You called me a loser in front of everyone who mattered in my professional world, but losers don't create $30 million worth of successful campaigns. Losers don't document 2 years of corporate theft, and losers definitely don't walk away from their abusers with their heads high and better opportunities waiting. I headed toward the door, then stopped as Rachel called out. Daniel, wait, the Watson Industries campaign, that won the Apex Award. Industry-wide recognition. That was yours? That and 12 others, I said. Check page 73 of the documentation. I included the original sketch I did on a napkin at lunch when the idea hit me. It's dated 8 months before Rebecca's breakthrough moment. Unbelievable, someone whispered. No, I corrected, completely believable. You all knew something was off. You saw me working late, saw Rebecca taking credit, saw the pattern. But it was easier to stay quiet, wasn't it? Easier to let the junior staff suffer than risk your own positions by speaking up. I looked at each of them. For those who genuinely didn't know, learn from this. Pay attention to whose names are really on the work you admire, and for those who knew and said nothing, you're complicit. You enabled this. As I reached the door, I turned back one last time. Rebecca, you were right about one thing. Some people are meant to be stars, but real stars generate their own light. They don't steal it from others. This is why documentation matters. If you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it with them now. And subscribe because I'm about to tell you what happened to Rebecca after this night. And trust me, justice was just getting started. The last sound I heard as the door closed behind me was Mr. Hartley's voice. Rebecca, you're fired. And you better hope that's the worst thing that happens to you tonight. The Denver Post ran the story 3 days later. Marketing executive faces federal charges in corporate espionage scandal. Rebecca's professional headshot accompanied the article, but she looked nothing like that photo anymore. Within 72 hours of that dinner, Rebecca Thornton went from creative director to criminal defendant. The FBI's white-collar crime division moved faster than anyone expected. Turns out, when you have documented evidence of someone selling trade secrets worth millions, they don't waste time. The arrest happened at her luxury apartment in downtown Denver. A neighbor filmed it, Rebecca in handcuffs, being led to a federal vehicle while news cameras rolled. The video went viral in marketing circles within hours. Someone set it to dramatic music and titled it When Karma Comes to Collect. It got 3 million views in the first week. But the legal consequences were just the beginning. The investigation revealed more than even I had discovered. Rebecca hadn't just sold information to 3 competitors, she'd been running an entire shadow operation. 7 firms had purchased stolen strategies. The total damage to Hartley and Associates exceeded $8 million. The trial lasted 4 months. I testified for 6 hours, presenting every piece of evidence I'd collected. Rebecca's defense attorney tried to paint me as a vindictive employee seeking revenge. But numbers don't lie. Timestamps don't lie. Bank records definitely don't lie. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon, guilty on all counts: wire fraud, corporate espionage, theft of intellectual property, embezzlement. The judge called it one of the most egregious cases of corporate betrayal he'd seen in 30 years on the bench. Sentence: 18 months in federal prison, 3 years probation, and $2.3 million in restitution to Hartley and Associates. But prison time and fines weren't even the worst part for someone like Rebecca. It was the complete destruction of her reputation. Her name became toxic in the industry. A simple Google search of Rebecca Thornton marketing brought up dozens of articles about the scandal, the trial, the conviction. Her LinkedIn profile disappeared. Her industry awards were revoked. The Harvard Alumni Association quietly removed her from their notable graduates list. Marketing firms started using her case in training sessions. Don't Pull a Thornton became shorthand for stealing credit. Business schools taught her story as a cautionary tale in ethics classes. She became exactly what she tried to make me, a nobody. Worse than a nobody, a warning. Meanwhile, my career exploded in the opposite direction. Brennan Creative didn't just give me the creative director position, they gave me complete autonomy to build my own team. Within 6 months, I'd hired 12 brilliant junior creatives, all with ironclad contracts ensuring their work would always be credited properly. Our first campaign won 3 industry awards. Our second landed a $40 million client. The industry took notice. Suddenly, everyone wanted to work with the guy who exposed Rebecca Thornton. But more importantly, they wanted to work with someone who valued integrity over shortcuts, creativity over theft, and team success over individual glory. I implemented something I called Creation Chains, a blockchain-style system for documenting creative work from conception to completion. No one could steal ideas anymore because every contribution was permanently recorded. 3 major firms adopted the system within the first year. The money was nice, my salary quadrupled within 18 months, but that wasn't the real victory. The real victory was personal. My mother got to see it all happen. Despite her cancer, she hung on long enough to watch her son go from nobody to somebody who mattered. She saw the articles about my success at Brennan. She watched my team's Super Bowl commercial from her hospital bed. She even got to attend the Apex Awards where I finally received proper credit for the Watson Industries campaign. 2 years late, but officially mine. I always knew you had something special, she told me that night, holding the award trophy. You just needed the world to see it too. She passed away 3 months later, peacefully, knowing her son had made it. At her funeral, I received flowers from unexpected sources, former colleagues from Hartley who apologized for not speaking up, clients who'd discovered their favorite campaigns were actually mine. Even Tom from accounting sent a note saying he'd left Hartley to start his own firm focused on financial transparency. But the most unexpected message came in a simple white envelope, no return address, postmarked from Oregon. Inside was a single sheet of paper with handwriting I recognized immediately. Your mother would be proud. You became everything I pretended to be. I'm sorry. I kept that note. Not as a trophy or for satisfaction, but as a reminder that success built on lies will always collapse, while success built on truth, even if it takes longer to achieve, stands forever. The marketing world is small. Everyone knows everyone, and now everyone knows that Daniel Morrison, the quiet copywriter who was called a loser at a company dinner, brought down one of the industry's biggest frauds simply by telling the truth. 6 months after the trial ended, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line simply read, "Can we talk?" Against every logical instinct, I agreed to meet her. The coffee shop she chose was nothing like the places Rebecca used to frequent. No marble counters or $17 lattes, just a small neighborhood spot in Aurora, the kind where contractors grab coffee before dawn and retired folks play chess in the afternoon. I almost didn't recognize her when she walked in. Gone were the designer suits and perfect hair. She wore simple jeans and an old college sweatshirt. No jewelry except a basic watch. Her face looked older, not from time, but from consequence. Prison does that, apparently. "Thank you for coming," she said, sitting across from me. No power plays, no commanding the room. Just a woman who'd lost everything, talking to the man who'd exposed her. "Why am I here, Rebecca?" She stirred her coffee slowly, gathering her thoughts. I hated you. For 2 years I hated how easily creativity flowed from you. You'd sit at your desk and just create, like breathing. Do you have any idea how hard I had to work just to develop one original concept? So you stole mine instead? I told myself everyone did it, that it was how the game worked. Take from below, deliver to above, climb the ladder. She looked up at me for the first time. But that wasn't true, was it? You never would have done what I did. No, I said simply. I wouldn't have. Even when I destroyed you publicly, called you a loser in front of everyone. You could have sabotaged me so many times, but you just documented, waited. Why? Because I knew the truth would eventually matter more than the performance. You were so focused on climbing that ladder, you never asked if it was leaning against the right wall. She laughed, but it was hollow. A loser who was playing the long game. I underestimated you completely. No, Rebecca, you underestimated yourself. She blinked, surprised. You had real talent, I continued. Your presentation skills were incredible. Your client relationships were genuine. You could have built an amazing career on your actual abilities, but you didn't believe you were enough. I had to work twice as hard to get half the recognition, she said quietly. Female creative directors make up less than 11% of the industry. I felt like I had to be perfect, had to be undeniable, had to be a thief. She winced. I convinced myself it was survival. It was fear, I corrected. Fear that your own ideas weren't good enough. Fear that working honestly meant moving slower. Fear that being authentic meant being vulnerable. We sat in silence for a moment. What are you doing now? I asked. Freelance work under a different name. Small clients, local businesses. Creating my own campaigns for the first time in years. She paused. It's terrifying. But it's also mine. Good, I said, and meant it. I'll never be able to undo what I did, she said. To you, to others, to myself. But I wanted you to know, I'm trying to be better, to be real. I stood to leave, then turned back. Rebecca, you were never meant to be me. You were meant to be you, the real you. That's the person who could have been a star. Her eyes filled with tears as I walked away, leaving her to finally face the person she'd been running from all along, herself. So what did I learn from all of this? What can you take from Daniel Morrison's story? First, your worth isn't determined by whoever's loudest in the room. Rebecca called me a loser in front of everyone who mattered in my professional world. But labels only stick if you let them. I knew what I'd created, I knew my value, and I waited for the right moment to prove it. Second, document everything. Every email, every file, every contribution. Not because you're paranoid, but because you're protecting your future. In a world where people like Rebecca exist, your paper trail is your armor.